Baptiste. He looks like
We've
Peter
gone
Stringfellow.
live. You've gone
Yeah, I
live,
know.
Stuart.
I know you got to start with a bang.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stuart. The Stugor, the Gimp, is obviously ruining the introduction before we've even started.
Can we start again, Paul? Can we cancel and restart?
Yeah. I once saw the English politician John Prescott. Did I say this before? And he was being interviewed live, and he said that was a bit crap. Can we do it again?
Yeah.
And the interviewer said, "No, this was live." And he said, "Come on, let's do it again." But anyway, we were joking off camera. Well, I was joking at myself. I like a bit of self-deprecatory humor, but I've mentioned this before to somebody else on my channel. There's a fake clairvoyant called Clinton Baptiste, who's was on UK television, and he occasionally pops up again. He does live shows of fake clairvoyance, and my hairstyle is increasingly looking like his unless I get a haircut very soon. But I just don't want to leave the house, so you'll have to deal with it. Right, can we officially announce it's a sad moment, but we've left the lesbians behind, haven't we?
We've cleared the lesbians. Yeah, we moved on from the Hawthorns, and yeah, we're making progress.
The lesbians are no more. Yep. So it's a sad day. I was
plenty more coming up though, isn't there, further down the road?
Yeah, well, so it's a little Caesarea, what do they call it? Caesura, a little pause in our lesbianic themes. But anyway, quickly moving on. Yeah. So, what did you think of this next section?
So I read up to the part. I read the Germantis Way. I read up to the part afterwards that when Gemon, I keep calling Germantis. Can we rewrite that bit? we should pre-record this so we can edit it. So
you should pre-record me going Gamon.
Wait, on those soundboards, keep pressing the button. Gamon.
I sound like an obese walrus when I do that. I'll have to stop. Anyway,
Gamon. Get down the beach. Gamon. So we're onto the Gamon Way, and I read up to the point where Monsieur Swann is introduced to Odette, and we get a good description of Swann's character. But I did a bit of a reading and a bit of a kind of a deep dive in YouTube language. Is it Mességlise Way? Yeah, and the Gamont Way.
Mességlise,
oui, monsieur.
Hey, Stuart, you know you're in a bad situation if you're relying on me to advise you on French pronunciation.
Où est les baguettes, s'il vous plaît? Combien de prix de pain au chocolat, s'il vous plaît?
De bière. That's all I ever learned.
De bière presson or de bière, how do you say can? Bouteille. Anyway, swiftly moving on from
the French. What's the French for a casket? A barrel.
Barrique. Barrique or something.
I'm in a good mood. I've just ordered some Nigerian and foreign export Guinness. So
very nice.
In a few days, I'm having a massive delivery.
You can have a Guinness blowout.
Yeah. Well, the World Cup's on, so it has to be done.
That's the point. Yeah. Spain didn't do very well the other day.
They haven't had the first game yet.
Yeah, Spain played.
Sorry. I thought you said England. Sorry.
England.
I forgot that you've become a traitorous wretch living in Spain.
Did you know? Without getting sidetracked, we will get into the text in a bit. What's his name? The last manager, previous England manager, Gareth Southgate.
Yeah, who you look like.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. He used to be a customer.
It's not a compliment.
Oh.
He had a face like a horse.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your honesty. But no, he.
It's like I'm doing a live stream with Mr. Ed.
It really is, yeah.
That's a bit of a dated reference for people.
It is, yeah. I know it though. But yeah, he used to be a customer when I worked back in the UK. He was a customer. He used to come in quite regularly. Very nice guy. Lives just outside of Harrogate. And
he was an awful manager.
I thought he was brilliant. I genuinely think that's as far as England are ever going to get in my lifetime.
He was rubbish. Anyway, let's get back on track. Stop distracting us. I found the way we've read it, I think, emphasizes the effect, because we've just come to the end of Combray section and then we've moved on to Swann's Way. But the sudden jump from all the description, and obviously I think it's done deliberately by Proust, but the jump from all these descriptions of nature and the innocence of this oversensitive mummy's boy to the random sarcastic cruelty of a little salon. It's quite bracing when you do the jump.
Yeah, but I was going to ask you about that because the Gaumont way and the Messiglis way, I've read some papers and commentary about it, is that both for kind of physical manifestations of a metaphor within Proust's
the
life.
Gaumont way is the aristocracy, and later on in the final book, it becomes
society
quite poignant.
And things like that. That's it. And then the Messiglis way is like nature. It's raw, unfiltered nature.
And it's the domesticity. It's because the whole of the first, couple of small books is all about Combray and Aunt Leonie and the comfort and the domesticity and the fact that the grandmother, she goes out in the garden in the rain and she's all about, they hate. We got introduced, didn't we, to the guy whose buttocks rippled with anticipation when he met the aristocrat. Yep. So we were introduced early on in the first book to the idea of sycophancy and social climbing. It was like the snake in the garden of Combray's Eden.
Yeah.
So we've been introduced to that, but now we're going full bore. We're going right into the shallow, superficial, which I saw. It's easy to make these, apply at your own times, but the superficiality of celebrity culture type idea of the salon. That they just have bon mots, that it's little catchy phrases, and they have stock phrases they repeat all the time. And this is you're completely correct. The Gaumont way is the aristocratic social climbing versus the Messiglis way, which is the comfort of home, the lack of pretension, the naturalness. And it's that theme, like the musical motif as we get to the Sonata of Vinteuil, that also runs throughout the novel all the way through. But I think that's why it has to start with the mummy's boy waiting for his mother to come up to kiss him, because that is the archetype of the domesticity.
Yeah.
And then you get into the cruelty and the shallowness and the transparently shallow lack of any loyalty in the salon.
Yeah. Well, there's a bit that kind of comes at the end of the Gaumont way section. So he describes the Gaumont way. It's very different to the Messiglis way, and he's hinting at how this is more linked to like society with the madame, what's the surname? The aristocratic lady basically coming to Combray, and right at the end he refers back to the mother's kiss at the end of the section, and it's like that kind of he's almost like links it to a fate worse than death. He's being pulled away from this aristocratic society by the mother's kiss, but he's still longing for it. It's kind of still there. It's like his safety net, like the theme you've been looking at lately, this idea of return to the sea, return to the mother's womb. It's like that's the grounding memory. So if you think of reality buds off these early memories that he has, when it all gets a bit too much and a bit hectic, he retreats back into this, mama, come to my bedroom kind of thing.
I think we need to create some pretentious phrase like rhizomatic return or something. That would be very Deleuzian.
Yeah, madame. I think something with mother. I don't know. Yeah, the feminine return to the kiss or something like that in Zizekian terms.
No, but I actually, I just think it's a beautiful transition the way he does it, and what I loved about it's so Proust. The Duchesse de Gaumont is in the church, and he had this preconception she'd be this, because she was an aristocrat, she'd be this stunning, beautiful example of a higher form of life almost. And then
she's got a big nose.
Well, no, and also she's got a zit in the corner of her nose.
Yeah.
This angry red zit. And he describes, I hate the word pimple. I've got like a pimple phobia. I hate that word.
Like spot.
But
pus-filled bubonic pimple.
So let's just call it a pussy zit, so we don't offend anyone. Sorry, can I just corpse now with happy memories of bubonic sores?
Oh.
I went through a phase and I watch odd YouTube videos. But there's like a subgenre of really disgusting cysts and things being lanced that you can find.
So I take it you've seen all these like botfly videos then, removing botfly maggots and stuff like that.
No, seriously, I think most viewers and listeners by now will have realised I'm a deeply disturbed individual. But I think I would have made a half decent surgeon, because things like that just don't gross me out at all.
Yeah. What's that phobia? Is it erythrophobia when you have like a fear of like, you know, spots and like it's basically on the body if there's like a rash of a lot of different spots, it kind of creates like a repulsive.
Well, in the hope I can put someone off their lunch. I don't know whether I told the story before. I had an old Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and she had a really bad cyst on her back that suppurated. So I took her to the vet to get it seen to. And it was hilarious. The female vet said to me, you may want to go outside. We'll take her around the back. And I said, well, she was a really clingy dog. I said, I'm happy to come and help. And they said, well, yeah, but it's going to be quite gross. And I said, no, it's fine. And they kept squeezing the cyst. And let's put it this way, I've never had cottage cheese since. But the vet started going green because it was foul. And I was just like, oh, this is fascinating, isn't it? So I honestly think I could have been a vet, preferably, because I don't really like people. But anyway,
surgeon or something like that,
yeah. Well, yeah, surgeon lopping limbs off people, I think would have suited me. I don't think I have a good bedside manner.
So you'd be like a Navy surgeon in the 18th century.
My anaesthetic of choice would be a bottle of rum.
Dr. Paul Taylor. Surgeon at arms.
All legs.
Yeah, but knowing you would deliberately forego the anaesthetic though. just for the shits and giggles. What's that, bow, son? A bit sore. War.
We've descended into pirate humour a bit early. Stuart has gone early. So anyway, on to the text. What's the first bit you want to look at?
Let's get my notes up. So we talked about the difference between the two different ways, and then making the name. Yeah, I think.
He gets into his. He has a bit of a steeple thing, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. That's interesting, the steeple thing, because he's already talked about that in previous sections, the Combray church. But then there's that weird section when he's a bit later on. Maybe cover that later on because it's a bit further on. But then he's in the carriage of is it Monsieur Villeneuve or can't remember. So many people begin with V in this novel, but he's in the carriage. He's getting a lift with the doctor. And you get this image of him, traveling through the road, and he sees the steeples of different towns, like adjacent towns, doesn't he? And he says he gets this incredible, sense of happiness.
Yeah,
almost like a wonder.
Yeah, if you can go down a little bit, when he says, "I could see the steeple of Saint-Hilaire, and I would have liked to be able to sit down and spend the whole day there reading and listening to the bells." The bells. It's a bit further, page over.
It's a bit further on 235. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah. Reading and listening to the bells, for it was so charming there and so quiet that when an hour struck, you would have said, not that it broke the calm of the day, but that it relieved the day of its superfluity, and that the steeple, with the indolent, painstaking exactitude of a person who has nothing else to do, had simply, in order to squeeze out that cyst again, and let the few golden drops that had slowly and naturally accumulated in the hot sunlight, pressed at a given moment the distended surface of the cyst. The silence. But in my notes I'd put here, there's a term in music, I think it is. It's called a fermata.
Okay.
Which is a pause. And to put it in popular music terms, I might have said before, I'm a connoisseur of awkward silences. And as if to illustrate the point,
we didn't rehearse that, folks. That was not just how it goes.
There's people trying to fast forward through the pregnant pause. No, but if you remember,
connection down.
in the late 80s, if you're at a disco, they'd play Eloise. Was that the Clash? Eloise, and then you know that gothy. Have you had a stroke?
No,
are you trying it?
Okay, awkward pause is banned from now on.
Right, Eloise, was that the Clash?
It was, I think, yeah.
Right, but there's a bit in that you're dancing along, and then there's just a really slow. Nothing happens, and I just remember you just shuffle around. You'd have to shuffle around the dance floor, and everyone would just be looking at the floor because it was a bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
And then it would start up again. So they obviously, they weren't doing it for people who wanted to dance. But anyway, a fermata's this, silence or this gap, this pause. Right. And there was a guy, I think it must have been late 80s, early 90s. It's not a particularly good novel, but it is funny. It's Nicholson Baker was his name. And he did a novel called The Fermata. And it's about this guy who can stop reality. The Damned, everyone's saying The Damned in the comments. Sorry, I didn't know. I asked Stuart, and he said it was The Clash. So he's an idiot.
I know nothing about that type of music. I just went with the flow.
Yeah, but I hope people in the comments will recognise there is really awkward. If you were trying to dance to it, you just have to shuffle around for a bit, which I found quite funny. But anyway, they've put me off now. What was I talking about?
You're talking about this novel this guy wrote called The...
Oh, and I think it's a shame Jay, Incontinent Jay from Texas, isn't in the chat yet, because I think something tells me it would appeal to his sense of humour. So imagine all the things you could do if you could pause the world. And he doesn't. He basically goes into people's bedrooms and undresses them while the world has stopped and does incredibly puerile things. I think it was talking to you made me think of it. But it's the fermata, this pause, and to be more serious, I think what Proust does, he describes things very, very vividly, and then he basically describes how time stops. So that looking at the steeples and what the bit I've just read, it's like the whole of in the Duchess of Guermante's Zit. It's like the whole of the universe becomes concentrated on one tiny little pustule. But that's the downside. But then he's very even-handed, and then he describes the sense of listening to these chimes, and it's something about church bells. It's something we've lost. It was something I was going to talk about later, that throughout the end of Combray, all I kept thinking of was Impressionist paintings and Impressionist paintings of the French countryside. And interestingly, in Impressionist paintings, they did loads of countryside, but quite a few of the paintings, I might do a video on it in future, but you began to see the incipient encroachment of iron bridges and chimney
railway
stacks
tracks
and chimney stacks in the background. Whereas initially, Camille Pissarro, for example, I've mentioned it before, his obsession with roads. He did country roads going into the distance that I find quite evocative. But then the Impressionists, more and more, they started painting the industrial encroachment. And that's what I think he's describing quite nostalgically, is the sound of the bells. They reverberate. But in order to reverberate, A, you have to be able to hear them, so it means the countryside has to be empty. And B, there are no intervening buildings. It's just, large space. And that's what we've lost. And to give you a quick example, I remember in Liverpool, there was a long stretch of road, Woolton Road, I think it was called. And I'm not sure whether it led on to it got another name, but it was the same long road. And on the right-hand side, as you walk down, it was a very straight, by British standards, because we don't have many very perfectly straight roads that go on for any length of time. And on the right-hand side was this huge, big boarding school in its own grounds. So there were the fields and this big, old-fashioned, huge boarding school that looked like a country estate. And then when I went, so that was when I was a kid, and it was just a huge bit of space and a beautiful building in the middle of a suburban area. And then when I go back, that is just a huge housing estate. And it sounds such a minor thing, and then you notice... I actually remember I dropped my girlfriend off at home, who lived about 2 miles away. And at midnight, I'd walk through these streets that were empty. And that, I know midnight, because it was a different world at midnight, nowhere was open. but everyone just went to bed. Whereas imagine even at midnight now, can you imagine in the UK at least, I couldn't imagine the streets being completely empty.
Yeah, I
So
think noise
I could walk for 40 minutes and maybe
Yeah.
see 2 or 3 cars at midnight and no one on foot.
Yeah.
And now it just that's for the birds. It just wouldn't happen. And what I'm trying to say is, I think he's describing the end of an era that I've also witnessed just by the sheer volume of people. Cars have got bigger. They're 4x4s. They're not just standard family saloon cars. Just everything's bigger, noisier, and it all sounds very incredibly nostalgic and stuff. But I dispute with anyone. You can't read Combray without getting a sense of that nostalgia.
Yeah, I think the noise drowns out the church bells quite literally nowadays. So like you said, factories, trains, roads, the automobile, it's coming in around this time. And yeah, it's just this kind of wall of noise. And so like a church bell isn't a natural sound, but it has a transcendental quality to it. Even though it's a man-made thing, it has something incredibly deep and meaningful to the sound.
Well,
whereas
also,
a train, a car, it's just noise. It's just background noise.
You're the sound expert because it's the way a bell dissipates.
Resonance.
It's the resonance, but then I'm guessing, and you know much more about this than I do, but within Buddhism and stuff, it's why they use bells, because the evanescence of the sound, it peters out. It's sound waves. You can hear the sound waves diminishing in ever diminishing circles. There's something cosmic about it. Oh, I'm getting really touchy-feely today, aren't
I? No, there really is. When I lived in South Korea, we went to some of these kind of mountain Buddhist temples, and they have these, big F-off bells, weigh 30, 40 tons that hang up. And when they ring it, it's like, it doesn't make that sound like a church bell. Like a British church bell has a very unique sound that I think it makes me feel like home. Whenever I hear that sound, I think of Sundays as a kid.
But well, there's also I've read loads of articles where yuppie gits move into country villages and have
complained about the churches.
Well, they've led to the church bells being removed because they said it's ruining their sleep. And these bells have rung for hundreds of years until some powerful yuppie git decides it's not for them. Yeah. But anyway,
nightclubs in the UK as well. But yeah, these Buddhist bells, they just ring it one time. And the resonance, it just keeps reverberating for 3, 4, 5 minutes. And they've actually made these bells, hundreds, if not 1,000 years ago, and carved, painstakingly cast to make a specific frequency. And that frequency, through scientific experiments, have found that it does alter how you feel. There's certain frequencies that make you feel calm, certain frequencies that make you feel more energetic. So to experience it in real life, not just see a video, it's just like, wow, this is,
I think, you and I have uniquely disturbing tones to our voice, and I think we've perfected the disturbing. It's taken thousands of years of culture to produce our disturbing tones.
What's the tone? Is it G minor? I think this one specific tone is called the devil's tone in music theory that creates feelings of dread. I think we somehow captured that in our voices, Paul.
Right. So
we need one of those Mickey Mouse voice changes to change the octave a little bit. But buttercups.
Yeah, it's just that there's a sense that the ground on the other bank was lower and stretching a series of broad meadows as far as the village and even to the distant railway station. This is what we're saying about the encroachment of industrialization. There's a whole, range of impressionist paintings that I love the way they do it. In the background, subtly, you see a chimney stack, whereas there's this beautiful, pristine countryside. The other one I can think of is there's a Henri Rousseau who does these weird, very rich, primitive paintings. And he has one of a French lane in which, in a little town, in which all these people are just walking around in 19th century dress, but there's like endless telegraph wires and telephone wires that completely ruin the view. And
but Proust does link, just to jump in, he does link that sentence you just quoted. He does link it to almost like battles, because he's saying the bank on the other side, distant railway station, over these was strewn the remains half buried of the castle of old counts. So he's basically saying I think he talks about battles, nothing left of the towers. He's saying that, the railway station is encroaching on the history, the ancient history of the area, almost like an army attacking the castle, an army approaching the castle.
Yeah, and if I can say something controversial, because it'll be interpreted as it's not meant. But I remember saying that because of in the UK, it's all kicked off at the moment about mass immigration. But there was I caught an Irish guy, and he was very mild-mannered. And he basically made the point that on the island of Ireland, people have been there for 9,000 years. It was like before the pyramids.
Yeah.
And he was saying, so to say when people, I think to some extent, Proust, without sounding like a rabid ethno-nationalist, Proust is writing about the association you can have with a land and the history. What you've highlighted there is year after year, century after century, this archaeological sedimentation of culture. And I think that's what annoys or upsets people when it's, yes, the world changes, yes, there's globalization, but to pretend that this type of affinity with the land doesn't exist, or it only exists for certain people, is really insulting. And I think Proust, if the right-wing knuckle-draggers could read, I think you could adopt Proust as an ethno-nationalist writer.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like Zizek has made this point quite recently, hasn't he? That to say that you can just deny the fact that like the importance of a culture tied to a physical space. If you try to deny that, it's not particularly healthy. Whether you use that in a political way or you're just making an observation, I think for a thinker who's broadly been associated with the left to basically understand that, I think is very important.
Yeah. Anyway, before we get accused of being ethno-nationalist.
Well, I think you can take that thought, and it's not necessarily got anything to do with ethno-nationalism. The ethno-nationalism
the way things get hijacked.
It does get hijacked. I think the ethno-nationalism comes from the fact that certain people tend to think of an ethnic group as static, like this has always been the way, and they take away the process of a kind of a becoming of a culture. But at the same time, I think you can go opposite the other way, and you can deny the importance of that culture. You can deny that culture is linked to a specific place, a time. I mean, even geography, even your flora and fauna is linked to the growth of a culture, and we've seen that through history. So to try and erase that and say there is no culture, this is not important, this is a bad thing to talk about, it's problematic in itself.
And then just after that, I've put in my notes palimpsest, the idea that it's a document or a manuscript that's been erased and then written back over on, which is very common in times when paper and all the things for writing on were quite rare and limited and expensive. So people would rub out and then, write down again. So a palimpsest is this idea that on a document you can see traces of what went before. And I think that describes the landscape that Proust is describing. But then he goes on about the buttercups. And it's, if you think about it, there are these ruins of stone that have stood there for centuries. They're all right, they're a bit demolished and ramshackle now. But it's the even stones lack permanency, and the way he describes it, it's almost like the buttercups are strong and virile, these tiny little flowers, whereas the stone is in a state of disrepair. But it's I don't want to start you off on your Alfred North Whitehead's process and reality diatribe, but it's something else I put in my notes for this whole section. There is a notion of and maybe we can talk about it another time, but Alfred North Whitehead, this whole idea of do you want to do a very brief description? But my understanding is process reality thinking. It's almost like a Western philosophical interpretation of Eastern mysticism, that there is one life form that surrounds us all. And I think that's what Proust writes about, whether it's the stones of a disused castle, it's the buttercups, it's you give it in Combray all these descriptions of flowers that we've mentioned several times. You can't get away from the damn flowers. But then he portrays the pettiness, the backbiting of the salon. And it's all part of the same life force, the way Proust describes it. And it does strike me as process thinking.
It is process thinking. I mean, Proust is essentially capturing in language. Like language is set up to capture things concrete. Language is not good at capturing process, things in movement. But it's only really through language that we can kind of capture a sense of the world, because it's very hard to use a static thing like a word and like a noun to capture something that's moving. So the best writers and authors I find, and the best philosophers are those who can capture movement through language. And Proust does this, I think, by kind of stacking different layers of temporality, of time. So when he's talking about the buttercups and he's talking about the stones, the way the stones move, or how we perceive that a stone has kind of some temporality, the way it decays, it erodes. It decays and erodes in our own observation at a very slower rate to a buttercup. A buttercup pops up, dies very quickly, whereas a castle wall erodes and decays over hundreds, if not thousands of years. So he's stacking those two different kind of temporalities, those experiences of temporality, in front of each other, I think very deliberately, to show that time is fluid, time is subjective. And as we've seen already, he does this in many different ways throughout the whole novel. You can have subjective time. So in the overture, he's subjectively picking out different elements of his life. Time's kind of speeding up, slowing down. Whereas just in this section here, he's saying, yeah, that exists within us, but it also exists kind of, in what we perceive as the outside world as well. Time is very different for different entities. And that's process philosophy to a T. Where process philosophy gets really interesting is trying to kind of, I guess, in a semi-religious or semi-theological way, is trying to tie that in. Does this process all link together in some way, in terms of relativity, in terms of Einstein's relativity? Might be a very simple way of showing that everything is kind of interconnected. The observer perceives something moving in a specific way, or moving to a specific time frame. But then when we take a step back, the more complex philosophy like North Whitehead's, it shows that everything is connected. Everything is, has these little connections, and it's operating in the same way.
Yeah, and I'll quickly finish with one more anecdote. I was treated in a hospital when I was younger, the Royal Liverpool Hospital, which was this massive Bauhaus, Eastern European, ugly, a huge hospital, but ugly architecturally. And then it wasn't that long ago that it was completely knocked down. So, and I'm guessing, I'd need to look it up. It was a huge concrete hospital that probably was only there for 30, 40 years. And now there is no trace of it, because they've completely, knocked it down and rebuilt. And that made me think of you're talking about timescales, and Proust is talking about timescales of centuries. In the earlier part of the Combray section, there's just the whole way in which the church seems to be some organic creature, and the stained glass windows, and the stone is described like honeycomb.
It's like a repository, of everyone who's been in there, and all the cultures. And
in this section, the spires, I think, are described like honeycomb, and they're an organic part of the landscape. And we've already discussed the sound of the bells, and I can't say that without sounding like Quasimodo.
The bells.
All of that.
We are in France.
Yeah, my point being though that when a huge mega hospital can disappear in 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And that it was as if it never existed. That is a weird psychological relationship to reality that we now have.
Well, there's an impermanence to the modern world and modern buildings. And I think even if you go back, historically not so long ago, I'm a big fan of the Victorians. I think the Victorian era was the pinnacle of Britain. And the Victorians,
because you just like wearing petticoats?
I love wearing petticoats and sooty hats and shoved it on steam trains. So I have a monocle collection as well. Anyway, the Victorians, their engineering philosophy was the Romans. That's where they got it from. They wanted to build things that lasted the age of an empire. Whereas nowadays, modern buildings are only really good for about 30, 40 years, like you said. So probably the Liverpool hospital had concrete cancer or some, like most hospitals in the UK now, they're falling down. Most schools in the UK now are falling down because they were built quickly. They were built to a design philosophy that fails to see the future, that fails to think long term. And yeah, I think it's interesting that our perception of time as a civilization, our perception of time as a culture, also informs the artifacts, the techniques that we make, buildings, computers, cars. You know, I mean, think cars years ago. Used cars, you get a good 20 years off a car, and you'd be able to fix everything yourself. Nowadays, it's so complex, so many little things to go wrong. They break, or you crash it, you dent it. Oh, right, you were going to write it off. You have to get a new car. It's like, well, why can't I fix it? Oh, it's in a sealed box. Everything's all sealed and glued together. You can't take the parts out. Yeah.
And then I was going to say he then starts talking about the glass jars. So after the buttercups, the glass jars
tadpoles,
and the tadpoles. But it made me think, I think it's a recurrent Proustian technique, like the zit of the Duchesse de Gaumont. He's talking about landscape and spires viewed from miles away, and then he narrows, and this is what made me think of process theory, because then he narrows and he describes, where are we? I threw into the Vivant, which is the river, pellets that had the power, it seemed, to cause the phenomena of supersaturation, for the water at once grew solid around about them in ovoid clusters of emaciated tadpoles, which until then it had no doubt been holding in solution invisible, but all ready to enter the stage of crystallization. So it's, if you think about it, the spires in the distance are almost like tadpoles in your eyes because they're so far away. And then he describes the actual tadpoles in the river. And it's this concertina from the distance to the here and now, the immediate, the microscopic. And I find that there aren't many writers who go, and that mirrors, because it happens at so many layers. You've gone from the domesticity of Combray, you then go to the Salon in Paris. And you've gone from, it's these switches from the local to the macro, the micro to the macro all the time. That is, the novel is riddled. And that's what made me think of process theory.
No, absolutely, and I think the topography of how he sets this section, the Vivant, we get this image of, it's not just one single river; it's all these little tributaries and little gardens and whirlpools, and it's almost like the river is meant to be symbolizing like the path of life itself. So it's not just one straight path; it's not just a straight road. It's organic, it's messy, little kind of twists and turns, and there's a garden over here with tadpoles and a little whirlpool, and over there's someone else fishing, and it's this. I think the river itself, the concept of the river, Hölderlin does this as well, the German poet, who Heidegger draws from. It's like this flow of life. It's like this process. Water itself it's not a static thing. It's constantly moving. It's constantly influencing.
Hölderlin was obsessed with the Rhine, wasn't
he? He was, yeah. I mean, Heidegger has, I think, 2-3 lecture courses just on Hölderlin, and yeah, it's just all about this process, this interaction, this continuation. Nothing is static.
It was Heidegger spoke about Hölderlin's Patmos poem, didn't he? And he said it's wherein the danger grows, wherein the danger lies, the saving power grows.
Power grows, yeah. Which is very kind of pharmacological in a sense. Every situation has got its danger and its saving power at the same time.
Yeah. Don't know what our saving power is. This bit here about if you can scroll down this is what I was saying about Impressionism also.
Yeah.
When he describes the Vivant and the water plants, first of all, later after this, if we can stick with this, but after this, he goes on about the lilies, and that strikes me as a direct reference to Monet and the water lilies. But this, because I've been reading a lot about, I'm going to do a video or two on mental illness, quite provocative pieces on it. But this, I thought this was an amazing description. He uses the metaphor or the simile of a plant in water and compares it to the mental state of his auntie. And I just think that's stunningly well done, because we're all caught in this. He talks about being caught in the treadmill of our own maladies. And I do think this idea that my videos that I'm going to do on my channel are all about the way in which everything has become medicalized. Everything is given the name of a syndrome or a process. And what Proust is doing here is saying it's just part of life. This concept of neurasthenia that was common in Victorian and later times, it became the illness du jour. And it's interesting that in different historical periods we have different definitions or labels or categories for what Shakespeare would have just described as part of life. So one of this guy I'm doing work on, Thomas Sars, he has this wonderful, he keeps quoting Lady Macbeth and says, was Lady Macbeth depressed? Are you going to give her a free pass for having killed someone? Because, and it's interesting, in Macbeth, Macbeth gets a doctor to come and see his wife, Lady Macbeth, and it's really hypocritical. Macbeth knows why Lady Macbeth is traumatized and is showing signs of mental imbalance. But he asks the doctor, and the doctor, there's this bit of dialogue where the doctor basically says, no, she needs to see a priest. There's nothing as a physician I can do for her.
Yeah.
And this is just, I think, this description of someone, the comparison of someone being on the treadmill of their own maladies, or being in a river and you can go so far and then your roots take you back. So the river being the flow of life, but the roots being your inherent characteristics, your tendencies. So, you know, the number of times I thought, well, I need to do better, I won't do that again. A few weeks later, you do exactly the same thing you shouldn't have done the first time.
It's baked into you.
Yeah, we pride ourselves on, well, I do, on being self-reflexive and stuff, and it doesn't make any difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we keep doing this every fortnight.
Yeah, well, this is like the therapy session, really, isn't it? Yeah, it's like.
I prefer to think of it as pointless plants flowing in a river of garbage.
Used condoms floating in a Manchester canal.
But canals don't have that's a bad example. Canals don't have a current.
They do by the lock, though. So I suppose it's not the same.
God, yes, that's a stretch.
I'm gonna go down to the canal, start wafting the water now. Get a current. Yeah.
No, but neurasthenia, I'm interested. There will be more on my channel about neurasthenia. You'll be glad to know.
Yeah, good to
but caught in the gears of their own maladies and eccentricities, their futile endeavours to escape serve only to actuate its mechanism, which also is incredibly psychologically insightful. The idea that the very thing, when you try and escape, it's like being caught in a net. The more you struggle, the less chance you have of escaping. I think that's a really powerful metaphor.
It is. I think that's one of the big issues in mental health. It's like, you know, if it's problematic, you know, pathologies or behaviors, it's like to try and escape from those behaviors using the framework of reference yourself that are causing those behaviors. That's the challenge for practitioners, I guess.
Yeah. And then there's the way, again, this notion of the microcosmic and the macrocosmic. Such was the water lily, similar also to one of those wretches whose peculiar torments, repeated indefinitely throughout eternity, aroused the curiosity of Dante, who would have inquired of them at greater length the particularities and the reason for their punishment from the victims themselves, had not Virgil, striding on ahead, obliged him to hasten after him at full speed, as I must hasten after my parents. Which again, from Dante's in the, what you call it, the
Inferno,
purgatory. It's I'm just trying to think whether he was in purgatory or inferno. It's the Divine Comedy collection, but the idea that why I think that's so psychologically insightful is he's about to ask these people in hell, and he gets dragged away by Virgil, who's his guide through hell. And then he makes the comparison, then he has to go and hasten after his parents. But in a certain sense, isn't that life? Just as you think you're about to understand something, you're pulled away. This myth that you ever get to fully understand or fully experience something. It's your point about the transience of life. And it's almost like Dante's teasing the reader. You're about to find out these profound metaphysical secrets, but the guide to the underworld calls you away. And I think that's what...
It's like Moby Dick as well, isn't it? Ahab's so determined to find the secret of the whale that... So then he's sucked under the water and he never finds out. He's literally pulled away by the whale itself.
Well, I'd argue that, without getting sidetracked into Moby Dick discussion, but why I love Captain Ahab is he basically says, sod this. I'm not being pulled away and tempted. I'm going. It reminds me, if I can give you a funny example, there was a discussion. I remember seeing a Vox Pop on the telly when COVID hit, and they interviewed someone from Sunderland who was refusing to isolate or wear a face mask. And he basically said, if it comes anywhere near here, the virus, I'll kick its effing head in. And I love that mentality. Yeah, but there's a seriousness. And actually, everyone laughed at this guy. But he actually, when you look back at COVID, he had the right idea. It was all a complete, farce. But Ahab does that. Ahab says, you're not going to tempt me with secrets of eternity or little sights of this white whale that's going to haunt me for the rest of my life. I will kill the, bar steward, or I will die in the attempt.
Yeah.
And so I think in some ways he's a rejection of this, the way in which reality keeps tempting us and giving us little hints. Ahab had had enough of that. And he just
created his own reality.
Yeah,
he's chose his own agency. He said, no, I am taking control of the situation, and I'm going to cut it up and pull it apart and wear its foreskin as a hat. Those are the deleted ending, deleted scenes. I think
viewer discretion is advised.
Yeah, that's probably the Hollywood version, though, wouldn't it? If Christopher Nolan remade Moby Dick, IMAX Moby Dick.
Yes.
Anyway, there's a great scene just a little bit further on. Why is it not finding it?
Yeah, can you just, before we could do that, there's we don't need to go through the whole description that I basically is the water lily in the shade of the trees.
Oh yeah.
But I would advise people, I think Monet's water lilies get an obvious reputation. That's two things I'd say. Is one, they're a bit biscuit tinny. In other words, they get put on tea towels and biscuit tins, and they've been turned into something kitsch. But I've never had the fortune, because I just don't like traveling anymore. But I believe if you go to the Orangerie, whatever it's called, where the full water lily paintings are, it's an incredible physical experience. It's like drowning, because they're all around this oval-shaped room, and it was designed to be this, metaphorically and almost literally immersive experience.
Yeah.
But what people, I think, fail to realize is some of his later, when he was losing his eyesight, when he painted the Japanese bridge and there's willows and there's water lilies merging, it's really almost like advanced modern art. It's really intense. There's the impasto, the paint on the canvas is so thick and gloopy. And it's this, it's almost like this paroxysm of color and intensity, and it's a million miles from the kitschiness. And it just made me think that this is also what's in Proust all the time. There's the biscuit tin pretty comment, but just lying beneath it, there's this awareness of this turmoil, cruelty. Yeah, I just find him a uniquely... He can go from one extreme to the other, and you almost don't notice how he's doing it.
Yeah, just within the same sentence. That's right. Which is the specific line, Paul, about what lilies that you were going to look at?
No, it wasn't. It was just the overall...
Just the overall image.
Yeah, that just struck me. This is a verbal description of Monet's paintings.
Yeah, you have to remember as well, water lilies are pretty aggressive plants. They basically block out anything underneath them. They kind of push through. I mean, this will be the Schopenhauerian will to power in a sense. They push through, and then the image of them is this serene lake covered in these individual water lilies that are fighting and pushing and looking for space, and then everything underneath kind of dies, and it's just like I guess like a biological wasteland underneath them because they block out the sunlight.
Well, this is what I was saying about when you look at the Japanese bridge. There are some pretty paintings he did of the Japanese bridge in his garden. But look at the later stuff, and it's exactly what you're saying. It's dark, almost existential in tone.
Yeah.
And I don't think most people realize how dark the paintings got. But I think that because his eyes were actually, getting cataracts, and he could hardly see 5 inches in front of his face. So by the end, he's painting up against the canvas, almost with his eyes to the canvas.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this line here. It's how often have I watched and longed to imitate, when I should be free to live as I choose. A rower who's shipped in his oars and laid flat on his back in the bottom of his boat, letting it adrift with the current. Just this idea of letting it adrift with the current, just going where the river takes you. It's very much like the fact he's saying this. This is like a foretaste of happiness and peace. It's basically saying that if you stop striving, if you stop kind of fighting, if you stop pushing, if you take away all this aspect of life, competitiveness, which we see in the salon a bit later on, just pure unfiltered nature. You can look at it two ways. You're this aggressive, dark, existentially, negative kind of thing like Schopenhauer did, or you can just look at it in this kind of more like Asian Taoist way of like it just is what it is. It flows. Pull your oars in, lay on the boat, sit back, take the ride. And yeah, he just jumps between the two. I think this is Proust. I think this is who Proust really is in this section here. Just someone who's just happy to go with the flow.
Oh, because I like to be much more negative and depressing. What about it? This is what he would have liked to have always stayed. This is like Ferenczi. This is like wanting to be in the womb.
Yeah.
And never having to leave. This is me on the sofa. My boat with looking at the sky and floating
on, Guinness
by.
in the hand.
Seriously, Guinness in the hand, football on, dogs snoring next to you. That is the idea of just gliding slowly by.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea that leading an active life is the only way to go is much overrated.
Yeah. Well, active, good exercise is good, but I think striving in an office environment or hustling, the rat race, urban life and stuff like that. I think
I agree with you on the exercise because I deliberately put McGuinness in the cupboard furthest away from the sofa.
Put it on the top shelf.
No, seriously. So I get an upper body workout, I get some cardio, and I go get them. I agree with you.
Yeah. So we move on to Madame Gaumont now. His little fantasies with Madame Gaumont and how it doesn't quite live up to the fantasy.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Stu Gore. You've been a very good Stu Gore this week.
Well, thank you, Master. The bells. Should I ring the bell, Master? Ooh, I do like the tone of the bell, Master.
Is it this normal? I've read a lot of psychoanalysis and psychotherapy, but I'm not sure it's normal. I'm getting slightly aroused now.
Well, do you prefer Hunchback or...
Did I ever tell you that Quasimodo joke?
I don't think so.
Quasimodo comes back...
Comes back, haha, was that the joke?
Yeah, no. Quasimodo's at home, and Esmeralda. I think Quasi's he's had a hard day ringing the bells all day, and Esmeralda reaches up for the wok, and he goes, "Oh God, we're not having Chinese again, are we?" And she goes, "No, shut up, I'm ironing your shirt."
That's a good one. I like that.
Be dum dum.
The dum dum. Taxi for one, please.
I love dad jokes.
Yeah, they're good fun. If I used to dream. Okay, let's get that back. Yeah, here we go. See, I used to dream. So he's walking along the river, and the Gaumont have like it's like an estate, isn't it? It's like a big, I guess. Trying to think. He talks about gardens, doesn't he? He says it's like the ducal gardens and these sort of kind of landscaped things. And then he says that I think the Gaumont have their palace or their country house a little bit further on, don't they? And then he starts talking about almost like fantasizing about having a lady of high standard, kind of a lady of high society, wants him, desires him, he's someone important. He's there. We still have this kind of idea of him in the countryside, stood fishing, by the river, not caring the world or leisure. But then he's got this partner next to him now, this lady of high standard who's kind of desires him and wants him.
I also found this section quite poignant because in a way, we all do this, and especially as children, you have these wild fantasies. But then what you learn as an adult is the worst thing in the world is if your fantasies actually came true.
Yeah.
So let's just assume, for example, I managed to kidnap Sydney Sweeney, and eventually she'd just annoy me. So this idea that you've got this dream of living in Saint-Tropez with Sydney Sweeney, and then you realise, you know, a laugh begins to annoy you, or she's got spinach stuck in her teeth, and that wants you, you know, to get really angry with her. And these things, I'm oversharing now, but these things, the point is, these fantasies, these dreams, but they just don't hold up to reality. Reality kills them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you look at a lot of celebrities, well, the makeup, you know, the paparazzi snaps them. I mean, I think of Kate Moss will be the perfect example. You know, Kate Moss staggering out of a club with makeup melted. I mean,
but then that's slightly different. That there is a sector of models, female models, who are a gay man's idea of a woman who wears clothes,
right?
As opposed to, like, so Sydney Sweeney is not a gay man's idea of a woman. No, I'm not being dismissive. You know, there are a lot of gay men in the fashion industry, and the whole point about skinny models is you want them to wear the clothes like a clothes hanger.
Yeah.
And then in the straight world, you don't want Sydney Sweeney to be wearing any clothes.
No, you want a bit of meat as well, don't you? Yeah, so it's a bit more healthy.
Yeah, so it's completely different aesthetic, if I can use that word for a completely inappropriate, gross, sophomoric lust.
Oh, well, we're descending into American Pie gross.
Well, not really. If anyone chooses to be offended, it's like, you need to read on. Like, Proust will outdo us shortly. So
we will do. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. But it's interesting. Again, we're getting ahead of ourselves now. But I think that the whole Monsieur Swann story arc is basically about this, isn't it? He can have any woman he wants. You know, he's the ultimate Lothario, but then he ends up with someone he's not so sure about, and he doesn't know why. It's interesting.
Do you? Because I think I know why, but do you have a theory as to why he settles for a debt?
I think at the moment is my initial reading is that it's because I'm trying to think. I think it's because that she wants him. Does that make any sense? Because she kind of imposes herself on him.
Yeah,
and he's not used to that.
It's not like me, but with Odette and Swann, I would adopt a very practical, easy Occam's razor.
Right.
Whilst combining it with pretentious psychoanalytical insight. I think it's when he's listening to the sonata and he is introduced to Odette at the very same time he's introduced to this sonata that represents for him. It's like his blanket, you know, when I was doing the Winnicott, a child has a transitional object.
Yeah.
The sonata for him, he's invested with lots of emotional meaning, and he associates meeting Odette with being reacquainted with that sonata. So he projects onto Odette all the abstract, weird, emotional content he has for the sonata. So subconsciously, he can't separate Odette from the sonata.
Right.
She's just the vehicle for all these psychological projections, and eventually, you know, like Sydney Sweeney and me, he can't stand her by the end. But that's not what it's about. It's not about Odette. It's about this relationship to desire. And it's true of everybody. Desire, I think it would be very unlikely that anyone could maintain the honeymoon period, that level of desire, 30, 40, 50 years on. It's just not. And
there's to be something deeper, doesn't it? There's got to be something that's...
Well, yeah, then it transmogrifies into something completely different. So it's only by fetishizing. It's why Lotharios will constantly try and reconquer, have a new conquest, because they're trying to get that feeling of the sonata and just have that emotional response replayed again and again and again. Well, theoretically you can do that, but even then it just becomes a process itself. Where's the originality? Where's the spontaneity of something that becomes... So you've gone out for dinner for the first time with all the promise of what might happen, but how many thousand dinners does it take before you think, I've been here before?
Well, that's the crisis in dating at the moment, isn't it? There's this kind of my field, you know, technology and dating apps and things like that. It's like all the mystery has gone, because now you can endlessly scroll through and pick another experience, but it's the same thing over and over again, the same dinner, the same date, the same, you know, quick fumble in the bushes, and then boredom. You're just like, oh well, that's that. Okay. There's no sense of long-termism in a relationship. There's no sense of like, well, there's going to be some good days, there's going to be some bad days.
Well, also, even if you were going to be a Lothario in the past, and now I'm careful not to overshare, the whole process was drawn out. Yeah. So you'd have to phone someone, you'd have to arrange to meet
write
them.
A letter. Yeah. Get the hand the what's he called, the carriage man to take the letter halfway across town.
Or you'd have to wait in bushes outside someone's house for quite a while to catch a glimpse of them. No, quickly moving on. But there would be a whole process whereby you couldn't just swipe left or swipe right.
Yeah. It took effort, took commitment.
Yeah, no, to be a Lothario, Casanova, it took some bloody effort. And that's gone. And this goes back to the impermanence of buildings. It goes back to it's the transitory nature of absolutely everything now.
Yeah. There used to be that phenomenon in Rome that there would be the Italian Lotharios, the Roman Lotharios would hang around the Trevi Fountain until beautiful American ladies would come, and then they'd go and do the shtick and the talk and how long are you staying, blah blah. I take you to this restaurant, I take you to that restaurant. There was a whole process over many days, basically, just to get a shag, to put it cruelly. But nowadays it's like you just go on the app, okay, meet you, the Netflix and chill, bang, and that's it.
Yeah.
Where's the talent? Where's the skill in that?
Stories from the life of Stuart.
I wished. So the life I never lived.
Yeah, well, I also, it passed me by because somehow, hello, love, do you fancy a Guinness? It doesn't. Bit of football and a Guinness.
Yeah, it doesn't really
work.
No. Oh, bless you. At least you tried, Paul. Many don't try. Many sit in the corner and wish. Yeah. Anyway, let's go to the church then, Madame Gamont. So that's Madame Gamont. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, he mentions the zit in the corner of her nose more than once. It becomes like a little fixer, and that's quite clever.
That's all she is. Yeah, that's all she is.
But the way his attention's drawn back, like in a circular manner, that he keeps going back to this, the zit becomes the epicenter of the world. And that's why I think that's an underestimated aspect of Proust that people don't talk about. They talk about waiting for Mummy to come and kiss him. They don't talk about the circular fixation of the zit in the corner of the nose.
I'm trying to find it. Where's it mentioned? I'm trying to find the number of times he mentions the zit. It's Chapels, yeah. Fair Lady, New Bright, yeah, little pimple at the corner of her nose. Yeah,
it's at least twice.
Yeah, it's twice. But I just think it's interesting. It's like the zit is obviously the first thing he sees, but he sees it in its entirety. He sees the territory, so to speak, of the large nose in which the zit inhabits, and that's the first thing he sees. It's interesting, that, isn't it? But we're always drawn to the face initially. And we all seem to pick out the worst feature.
But then later on, he talks about the, and then, oh, marvelous independence of the human gaze, tied to the human face by a cord so loose, so long, so elastic, that it can stray alone as far as it may choose. While Madame de Gamont sat in the chapel above the tombs of her dead ancestors, her gaze lingered here and wandered there, rose to the capitals of the pillars and even rested on me, like a ray of sunlight straying down the nave, but a ray of sunlight that, at the moment when I received its caress, appeared conscious of where it fell. But again, it's what you were saying before about a good writer describes flow. Yep. So he's described the gaze of a human eye in a human face, but then links it to a chapel full of tombs of dead ancestors. It's the here and now, it's centuries past. It's something as ambiguous and evanescent as a gaze, something as permanent as the stone of the church. It's all just the ray of sunlight that's completely evanescent. It's all thrown in there and combined in a beautiful section.
That's a great description. It's quite interesting as well that he describes it. He sees her initially and she doesn't live up to his fantasy, and he's obviously repulsed. But then it's this idea that despite her physical appearance, she has this power of this gaze. She's still somebody. She's still connected to these centuries of history in Combray. And I think as well, when the people in the church, you get this kind of image of it, oh, look, there's Madame Gamont. Oh, we don't see her much. You know what I mean? Say, oh, she's special. And it's in the same section that the plebs, the people around him, are saying, oh, isn't she beautiful? Isn't she wonderful? And then he starts connecting that, oh, yeah, maybe she's beautiful. Maybe she's wonderful. Maybe she doesn't fit my fantasy.
Isn't there a song about that? Isn't she beautiful?
No,
isn't she wonderful?
Oh, Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
What's the actual lyric?
Is it like, isn't she lovely? Or something like that.
Yeah,
Stevie Wonder.
I couldn't stand his voice. I know it's a very unfashionable opinion, but I thought he had like a Dalek voice. I didn't like Stevie Wonder's voice.
He's a very unique. Well, I mean, I think he passed away, didn't he? I don't think he's with us anymore. But he was a very unique talent, because I thought he's obviously an accomplished keyboardist, but I think sometimes some of the choices of patches for the keyboard you sound a little bit like what you'd hear in an old folks home. You know what I mean? Like somebody playing one of those like a Casio keyboard, and he'd have a big cheesy grin going, and you kind of, as a kid, I thought he was a bit of a joke. Like, I thought, is he just doing this for like a dafty? You know what I mean? Is he really like one of the world's greatest musicians?
Is that a new adjectival noun you've invented, a dafty?
No, it's Scottish. I think it's from Glasgow. Having a dafty, you can use it as a noun. You can use it as a verb as well.
Well, I prefer. I've just made up a neologism, an adjectival noun, because I think it's.
We actually, me and a friend talking about neologisms and word games, we actually created the negative of dafty. We call it a devash. So dafty is having fun, and devash is the antithesis of fun. And we used to say, you know,
that we do once a fortnight.
What we do with Proust, yeah. But if we'd be walking through town, and there'd be like those charity chuggers, you know, Red Cross or Greenpeace or something like that, and we just got he's the charity chuggers. They're the epitome of devash. And yeah, I don't know, just a weird word that stuck with us.
Right. So he said it was impossible for me to determine whether she approved or condemned the vagrancy of her eyes and the careless detachment of her heart. I think this goes to what I was saying about Odette. I think you're being set up in a novelistic way. Your point about the Duchess of Gaumont, what is it about her? She's got a zit. She's got a huge, nose. She turned around quickly. You'd have to duck.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be unemployed at Christmas. How many other ways can I describe someone with a big nose? But the idea is, it's not her physical qualities that matter in the slightest. It's what people project onto her because of her social position.
Yeah.
Odette's got the opposite. She's the complete. This is my point about the going from one extreme to the other. Odette is a courtesan, basically, and everything. Swann could have whoever he wanted. But my argument would be, it's just the randomness of life. He happened to be next to her while he had this emotional event of the sonata. So you could argue that he was already susceptible, he was already ready. But it's also this idea that we have agency, that we're in control of our lives. We choose who we settle down with. There's a lot of random serendipity. And I think one of the biggest indicators, or at least it used to be, and this is again what's changed, it's how close you used to be in physical terms. It was either someone at work or someone at your local pub. That's who you'd, by definition, that would be the pool of people you're able to go out with.
Yeah.
Whereas now, that local dependent notion of selection has gone out the window. And again, that's a very odd development.
Yeah.
That was it. There's a phrase along the lines of propinquity is the biggest indicator of who you're going to end up with, rather than who you might actively think you want and what your preferences are. So, typically if you're working with someone and you fancy them, there used to be, that would be overwhelmingly the most likely way you'd meet someone.
Yeah.
So propinquity is, and that can be random, the way in which people end up working in the same place. There's that randomness has been absolutely replaced by swipe left, swipe right.
Yeah. I've seen some studies in the past where they showed that police detectives, police constables, are more likely to have an affair, because especially if they're in a male-female partnership, if you're teamed up with your partner as a female, because basically you spend the whole day with them. You spend 10, 12, maybe 15 hours a day in the car with the same person, and regardless of if you initially find them physically attractive, you just become so close to them. It's almost like you start to develop romantic feelings for them, and it's very common in the police for that to be an issue.
Right. Are we making progress?
I think we are, yeah.
And that's the other random thing. So further on, he says, for it is sometimes enough to make us love a woman because she looks at us with contempt, as I suppose Mademoiselle Swann to have done. While we imagine that she cannot ever be ours, it is enough also sometimes if she looks at us kindly, as Madame de Gaumont did then, while we think of her as almost ours already.
This is what happens with Odette, and
but it's also the male psyche, isn't it? If a woman looks antagonistically, that you interpret that as a come on. If a woman looks enthusiastically, you interpret that as a come on.
Yeah,
there isn't an awful lot.
Woman. No,
with a priapic man in the equation, there isn't an awful lot that you find off-putting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a little bit more complex for women, so I've been told. But no, I think that's that second option. I think that's the situation Swann finds himself in. It's like he's obviously got this like Odette is looking at him very longingly and lovingly and stuff like that. But it's interesting that you've linked it to the sonnet, that maybe just this little spark kind of opens his eyes a little bit to her. It's an odd couple, Swann and Odette, very odd couple. We've got one. Yeah, tell me, Paul.
No, I've got a section here then, quite apart from all those literary preoccupations without definite attachment to anything. Suddenly a roof, a gleam of sunlight, reflected from a stone, the smell of a road would make me stop still to enjoy the special pleasure that each of them gave me. And also because they appeared to be concealing beneath what my eyes could see something that they invited me to approach and seize from them, but that, despite all my efforts, I never managed to discover. It's what I was saying earlier about you never get to the heart of things. As I felt that the mysterious object was to be found in them, I would stand there in front of them, motionless, gazing, breathing, endeavouring to penetrate with my mind beyond the things seen or smelled. Now, in philosophy, this is Ding and Zik, this is Kant, this is Heidegger, unconcealment. There's lots of philosophical material there that I think he just describes in a novelistic form.
No, absolutely.
But this idea, it's all the way through Proust, there's this sense that just underneath the surface, you said earlier that you highlighted a section that you thought described who Proust was. I think this section describes who Proust was as a writer. That he's just, he describes how he's in the carriage and he starts to write about, he's so overtaken with the impression made by the spires that he writes, it's his first piece of writing, really.
Yeah.
And apart from anything else, it doesn't really matter whether the writing's good or bad. It's the fact that he managed to write it and he begins to see himself as a writer. And that, but he's trying to convey in the writing what it is to see spires. And then it's the point about relativity. It's almost like a Einsteinian experiment in practice, because the spires change depending upon your location, on how you're moving towards them.
Yeah.
So he's describing what can't be described. He's describing in a static form, i.e. writing. What you were saying earlier is flow. And perspective changes, both physically as we approach objects, but also more metaphorically as we go through life, our perspective changes because the distance from the things we experienced has increased. And then you go back to the Madeleine episode, and in the final volume of the whole book, he does this thing where there's 2 or 3 instances of Madeleine-like episodes where he has these involuntary memories and everything comes flooding back. So it's about memory being about distance, images of spires being steeples being about distance and how it changes, memories about the distance through life, And then I think the closest Proust gets to ever capturing the truth or ever managing to capture it as a writer is this notion of the involuntary memory and the idea that when everything collapses, when time collapses, you're in the absolute now.
Yeah.
You can never fully describe that, but I think Proust describes it as close as any writer ever could.
Yeah, I think what he does in this section as well is it's that, and it's even more clever in itself in terms of the perspectives of the spire. He's moving distance wise between, and the perspective of the spires change, but he's also saying that he never gets to the spire. He never sees.
He aspires to it.
He aspires to get to the spire, but he never gets to the spire in itself. So he never gets to the real, the accurate spire. And I would argue in process philosophy, that's the whole point. You never get to it. You only see perspective.
It doesn't, in a sense, when they enter Mesoglese, don't they actually? Doesn't it basically describe how he's seen it in the distance, and then before you know it, he's actually in the town where the spire is? And I interpreted that as being, that is also desire is a distance concept. It's a distant dependent. You can't desire something if you're right next to it.
Yeah, he suddenly loses interest. But
so the best example might be, satiety. I desire my ribeye steak once a week, but the minute even I have had a huge ribeye, desperate Dan-sized steak, I no longer desire it because I've been satiated. So desire always implies distance from the thing that you desire.
Yeah. Just get this one. So then, he talks about after he writes that little section, because in my edition, the font's a little bit smaller, so it's actually kind of singled out to suggest that what we read at one point is his writing. It's his notes, his little bit of paper. But I think in this digital section, it's all the same font. But he says, so filled with happiness after he's done his writing, I felt that it had so entirely relieved my mind of its obsession with the steeples and the mystery which lay behind them. That as I thought myself were a hen and had just laid an egg, I began to sing at the top of my voice. So it's this thing that drives him on. Go ahead.
I made a mistake. Sorry, I was talking about Mesoglese. It's Martinville.
That's it, Martinville.
So he says, in ascertaining and noting the shape of their spires, the shifting of their forms, the sunny warmth of their surfaces, I felt that I was not penetrating to the full depth of my impression. This is about what you can't capture. That something more lay behind this mobility, this luminosity, something that they seemed at once to contain and to conceal.
Yeah.
The steeples appeared so distant, and we ourselves seemed to come so little nearer to them, that I was astonished when, a few minutes later, we stopped in front of the church of Martinville. So that's my point. He's seen them in the distance, and before he knows it, he's right up against them.
And he's touched it, yeah.
And then the desire isn't there because you're already right next to it.
Yeah, yeah. The mystery is gone, so to speak. Yeah. But no, it's a great little section. I think, you're totally right. It does capture the heart of what he's trying to do as a writer. It's like the genesis of his style and his obsession. Because every writer has their own obsession, their own themes, and
it's right next to it. Yeah, I think the strength of the argument would be all this description of the steeples is right next to his first bit of writing that he ever achieves.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty strong suggestion that as an actual adult writer, that's what he's describing. That's what it means to him.
Yeah. Trying to find that bit a little bit further.
Oh, that was sorry. There's one more bit after your bit about the hen.
Yeah.
He talks about the zone of melancholy. It's one of my favorite sentences in the whole book. The zone of melancholy that I entered was totally distinct from that other zone in which I had been bounding for joy a moment earlier, just as sometimes in the sky a band of pink is separated as though by a line from a band of green or black. You may see a bird flying across the pink band. It draws near the end. It nearly touches the black. Then it has entered it. It's the transitory nature of desire, achievement, ecstasy, all these. If you had a one-line sentence that, life is short or life is transitory, That's the essence, the nub of the issue. But that sentence is a longer expression, beautiful expression.
Yeah.
And the way he uses a bird flying across, so you know the bird, and that's another why it's such a beautiful description. You know the bird is there in the sky, but you can no longer see it. So you know it's something's lying under the surface, but you can't capture it anymore. You can't see it.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit further on. He says to learn to distinguish between these states. Is his image of that kind of you're oscillating between happiness and melancholy, contentness and unhappiness, and it's to acknowledge that, is to actually see that again. It's a transient moment. It's a process. It's not I feel happy, I feel sad. It's a constant renegotiation between those two states that kind of balance it out. And this image of the sky, pink and then darkness, and you are the bird. You are flying between these two zones constantly. You're not just
this
here
relates.
1 minute,
Yeah, this is what I'm going to bore people to death with over the next few weeks. My new obsession with Thomas Sars, because I think one of the points I've made even prior to reading Thomas Sars is the idea that you look at the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association. It's a load of dry lists of categories.
Fixed categories, yeah.
Yeah. So if you looked under bipolarity, there'd be some dry, scientific sounding, but ultimately meaningless description. Whereas this is actually an intimation in a literary form of bipolarity.
Yeah.
That to me is much more meaningful and much more helpful than a Diagnostic and Statistical Manual description.
Yeah. Well, it's that thing in science. You have the category of measurement pre-discloses what can be disclosed, if that makes any sense. And the famous experiment is the quantum physics, the wave particle experiment, where I think you shine a laser or a light through a slot, and light behaves as a wave or it behaves as a particle, depending on what mode you choose to measure it. So it's a kind of, in a sense, like Schrodinger's paradox as well. Is the cat in the box alive or dead? Well, actually, it's alive and dead at the same time. And I think the problem is with most kind of medical diagnostics for mental health problems is you're saying this is the problem. You have this label. As soon as you are given that label, you become that label. You act out that label. You're not looking at a transient phase caused by external stimulus. You are putting a fixed label on that person, and once that label is applied, that they are that, and there's a risk there. And I mean, the medical kind of industry is aware of this, but the problem is it's hard to sell a box of pills. It's hard to sell a solution and monetize that if the solution is more fluid, if that makes any sense. If you can say you have this is the drug to take for it, there's money to be made for it. If you say you are in a process of becoming, or you are in a process of individuation, or whatever process philosophy you want to use, and this is how we're going to influence the process, it's much more fluid, it's much more complex, it's dynamic, it takes more of an investment. And that's the problem. I think that's where the categorization comes from. The whole medical model that's so fixated on fixed treatments.
Yeah, I just think this. Like I said, apologies for being so fixated on this Thomas Sars thing, but he's got this Hungarian thick accent, and he says he was being interviewed by this Australian woman for ABC, and she basically says, "But that's quite provocative." And she at one point she says, "How can you say that?" Or "What do you mean by that?" And he says, "I can't do the accent," but he says in this thick European accent, Eastern European accent, "Life is no picnic." And that's ultimately, if you wanted a summary of his philosophy, it's basically, guess what? Life is tough. And no one gets done any favors by all the things you've just described, trying to categorize problems out of existence.
Yeah.
Whereas I think what Proust does here is describe the problem in its essence.
Yeah, it's moving essence as a process that's not a fixed state in a sense.
And just before he said, I'm as happy as a hen laying an egg, and now he's saying I've entered the zone of melancholy. But that is also but also life is no picnic. I'd also add to that, it's not just that life's no picnic. It's that genuine creativity that Proust embodies is only possible with these vacillations of experience.
Yeah.
Someone who's on a complete emotional, the most mentally, to use the common parlance, which SARS and I now would disagree with, the most mentally healthy person imaginable. It's very difficult to conceive of them writing a brilliant novel, because you need to inhabit the extremes of emotional experience
you need
to write about them convincingly.
Yeah.
And if you're constantly on an even keel, I dispute what type of life you're leading, because that's one of the ironies. If you're so well adjusted that there are no disparities in your behavior or character, it's a weird sort of life.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of dialectic philosophy as well. That's Hegel. It's this idea that you know, life is conflict. Life is constant renegotiation. And if you have a fixed static state, I am happy and I am going to stay happy forever, then where is the conflict that drives creativity?
What's that song? Life is life.
Oh, it's like
life is life.
Yeah,
we need to do a best of Stuart and Paul.
Best of karaoke. Oh man!
So one of us can sing while the other one is talking like that. We need
just the music.
We need a list. Hey, you've just triggered my Rolf Harris. Can you see what it is yet? You just did the.
Can you see what it is yet? Some heavy Rolf beats. It's a bit of Rolf Harris beatbox to end for the day.
We've just been taken off YouTube.
Can you see what it is yet? Or you mentioned Rolf Harris a couple of weeks ago. This is Jungian synchronicity. 2 minutes after we finished that podcast, when you were talking about Rolf Harris, my brother in America sent me, because he works in a bar in America, he sent me a picture of a guy that looks exactly like Rolf Harris, and he says, "Oh, I'm just at work now, and there's a guy that looks like Rolf Harris."
And you said, "I've just done a podcast with someone who looks like him."
Yeah, I just said, Andy, like get on the link to the podcast and look, because we've just been talking about Rolf Harris. And he said, "Oh man." And there was another weird thing that happened. Remember you did the Samuel Becker? You did a video on Samuel Becker.
Yeah.
Craps last tape.
Craps last tape.
The day after you did that, I was in Madrid in a used bookshop, and there was a book on Craps last take, like on the recommended book of the day, a second-hand book of that the day after. Very weird.
Incontinent Jay in Texas is in the house.
Is he in the house? Oh, Jay, you're late.
He, because I were talking in the past about a karaoke song, so I could do Suspicious Minds or Hands Touching Hands. His song apparently is It's Now or Never. I'm not sure. I think because my voice is deep, so I'm wondering whether I could. Because I was saying to him in a comment that I'm not sure I've got the tonal range. My inability to sing only covers certain songs badly.
I don't think you've got the talent either, like on the tonal range. Come on, let's be fair.
That's never stopped me. But I'm actually not
don't
sure.
Have the tonal range.
It's now or never. No, that sounded like the Cornetto advert. No, I'm not sure I've got the range. I think Jay's showing off. He thinks he could actually do it.
He can do it. I think we need a talent contest, don't we? We need a.
Oh, someone said, John. Thank you, John. Opus mid-80s. Life is life.
Opus, nice.
Vamos a la playa. No, John.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah.
I was in Madrid it must have been 1984 or 1983.
I'll tell you. Yeah.
And Vamos a la playa. And the other one was No Tengo Dinero.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
They had
Riguera, yeah. 1983. Yeah, I was born. Vamos a la playa. Yeah.
No, and the other thing was, I can't remember. It was it was in the early 80s, and it was McDonald's had a Maradona. Was Maradona playing for one of the big Spanish sides? And Gucachea was a Basque player. I think it was Atletico Bilbao, and he was called the Butcher of the North.
Right.
And he broke his leg. He broke Maradona's leg in a terrible tackle. But Maradona had done some sponsorship deals, so you had life-size Maradonas outside McDonald's in Madrid. Wow. And I was with a load of Scouse school kids, and we stole.
We nicked one.
No, we stole the life-size Maradona. And I don't know whether it'll be in the house somewhere. I have a picture of one of the kids on our trip getting on the plane back to Liverpool with Maradona under his arm.
God,
we had to negotiate.
Those were the days before TSA screening, wasn't it?
Yeah, you could take things on planes.
Bombs, yeah.
No, we had this really involved discussion with the people at the airport as to whether he was allowed to take it on. It was hilarious. I felt sorry for Madrid. It was like a plague of locusts had descended.
Well, yeah. I mean, when I go on like Spanish forums and stuff like that, it's like British people are not well liked in Spain, and one of the things is like, they are thieves. British people are thieves apparently. They stole all the New World silver. Was it who were the Corsairs? The very famous Corsairs. Then they got drafted into the British Navy to fight the Armada. Oh, the household name. Why is it not coming to mind?
There's been a recent incident in Dallas. England are playing tonight, and apparently, I've been watching all this footage of the Scottish fans have stolen the hearts of the Boston people, and then the Japanese fans, when they finished the game, they cleaned up the stadium after them, and then they showed you the English fans were being arrested in a Dallas bar for taking their clothes off and singing "Sweet Caroline." And there's multiple arrests because they're just acting completely out of control. I thought, good old England fans.
Yeah, it does sound about right. Just looking. I'm looking through. It's Francis Drake. Francis Drake fought in the Armada, didn't he?
Well, yeah, he was on a ship.
Yeah. So I think before the Armada, Sir Francis Drake, they basically just hijacked. They were like pirates. They just hijacked Spanish ships on the way from the New World, and since then, the Spanish have this kind of stereotype as the British as of being thieves. So, silver from the New World, Maradona.
It's quite ironic, since all the Spanish have ever done is stolen our fish. So, goes around, comes around. Yeah, it's why, honestly, we'll just finish on this note. It's why I think the Spanish never do particularly well in the Olympics, because all their able-bodied men are on ships stealing English fish. So, you make compromises in life.
Yeah, well, the fish is good here. The seafood is
because it's been stolen. We want our fish back.
Yeah, but we don't eat most of it. I mean, you can get all sorts of fish here back home. It's like, do you want cod, or do you want haddock, or do you want lemon sole? And then all the good stuff gets sent over to Spain because we don't eat, monkfish and lubina and all these, prawn, gambas.
No, I think you're engaging in an ideological lie about we don't eat fish. We don't eat fish because we can't have it because it's been stolen. That's why.
That's why, Paul. I know.
Anyway, I think we should end there. We'll just finish off next time. We'll finish off the very end of this section and then dive into Swann's Way, which I quite enjoyed.
Yeah, it's definitely a tonal shift. When you jump into Swann's Way, it's almost like, we're in a different book almost. The style is very different.
I was going to say, before we go to Incontinent Jay in Texas, before you go, Jay, look up Clinton Baptiste, because Jay's been very insulting about my hair in the past. So Clinton as in the president, and Baptiste, Baptiste. He's a fake clairvoyant who I find very amusing.
He's a fake. He's not just a fake. He's a fake.
And he does things. He goes like, Namaste, Shack Attack.
Academics and pliers.
Yeah, no, seriously. He has some made up stuff that's very funny.
Yeah, it does sound good.
Anyway, well, I've still got some hair. That's all I'm grateful about. Do you still dye yours, Stuart?
Yeah. Piss off. Of course I do. This is my natural hair. It's my voluptuous, beautiful dark hair. I can fit
Grecian 2000, if you ask me. How long do you think it'll be before it goes grey?
My dad started turning grey. Well, no, I've already got quite a lot of grey hair. I don't dye it. I just leave it. But my dad started turning grey about 50. I'm looking forward to the Silver Fox phase. I think.
Yeah, I've gone past that. I'm in the Father Christmas, Rolf Harris, Harold Shipman phase.
You're in the white to that white phase, yeah. But but my dad's 80 next year. I think he's still got fair.
Jay is such a sycophant. He's saying I have great hair after spending week after week insulting it.
Top fan, Jay. It's what we like. We like Paul's support network.
Yeah. Anyway, well, that's been wonderful, everybody. We're still
been
making
Laura laughs.
Laura laughs. Slow progress, but we have made some. And onwards and downwards. In 2 weeks' time, we return.
We do indeed. Hasta luego.
Hasta la vista. Bye.